You know how in my last video I was talking about how it doesn't really matter if you're, using a 35 millimeter or a 20 millimeter or 85 or whatever. Like the focal length is really more about your aesthetic and your taste. And I mean, that got me thinking. And that's kind of cool that it got me thinking about my own video. But, I was thinking like filmmaking is kind of a conundrum, and I think YouTube is different in that way. And what's really interesting about YouTube is that a lot of people do really well on YouTube just talking in their kitchens. And, I actually watched a video this morning by another YouTube guy, and I can't think of his name right now. I think his name is Ben Staley, I think. I'm going to link his channel because he's got an incredible channel. He's a really talented guy. And I really enjoy his channel because it's entertaining, But there are a lot of people on YouTube who just, report to you from their living room or their kitchen or something like that. And he brought that up this morning. He's like, a lot of people, like more and more people are watching YouTube as opposed to Netflix or Showtime or HBO, stuff like that. And the reason for that is that people are kind of craving something that's real, more genuine. And it got me thinking about movies, like movies are supposed to be not real sometimes, right? Like we want fantasy, we want fantastical, like crazy, not real. Like, I've heard filmmakers even say this is not real life, this is a movie. But then again, my favorite movies are more real life. I enjoy more dramatic films, not superhero films. I don't like horror films. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. I don't even really like special effects. Like the only kind of special effects I like, and I don't even know that you would consider these special effects, but like in 1917, Roger Deakins was a cinematographer, and he made that movie look like it was all one shot, one lens, just following these two guys around the whole movie. And pretty much they shot it with one lens and one focal length, but they made it look like it was never ending, like they never put the camera down, like they just followed these people everywhere. And, it's absolutely impossible that they did that, but they figured out how to do that in post-production. So I guess that's kind of special effects-like, but, I think it really is a matter of taste, And I guess this is kind of part two of the other video without me realizing it until this very moment, but I'm going to reiterate what I said yesterday, which is basically that when you choose, and I'll go beyond just lenses today, although I'm conducting a test right now, and I'm going to include you in it by the end of this video. Excuse me. But, this goes beyond just lenses. Like whatever camera you use, whatever lenses you use, whatever aspect ratio you like to shoot in, whatever LUTs you like to use, however you want your frame to look. If you want film emulation or you want it to just look real, if you want to shoot 24 frames per second to get that movie motion blur cinematic feel, or if you want to shoot 30 or 60 to make it look more like a news show or sports, I mean, it's really up to you what you want to do. Like right now, I'm shooting with an anamorphic lens. I don't have to shoot with an anamorphic lens. It's harder to shoot with an anamorphic lens. It's all manual. I have to focus myself from pretty far away from the camera. It's heavier, it's longer, it's more stressful on my camera itself. And yet I'm using it because I love the way it looks and I enjoy working with it. I really do enjoy it. And I have three of these lenses. This is a Sirui 24 millimeter f2.8 APS-C 1.33 squeeze factor lens. That was a mouthful. And the reason that I shoot anamorphic so much is because I like it. It's not because it's right, and it's not because it's better. It's not because it's anything like that. It's because I like it. And so somebody might get it twisted, like, if they like what I do, they might think they have to go out and buy APS-C Sirui anamorphic lenses when they could do what I'm doing with a kit lens, Like, it's really going to be a matter of what you like, and that doesn't just... It's not just, wow, that was an amazing looking bird right there. It's not just about the way it looks, it's also about the way it fits into your workflow, how you like to work. If you're willing to, for example, even just like do the math to learn how to de-squeeze an anamorphic shot. Like when you're shooting with an anamorphic lens, it's completely different. Like I happen to have a Panasonic S5, and so this camera supports anamorphic shooting, so I can see exactly the way the frame's going to look in my camera, but most mirrorless cameras don't do that. Like Sony, well, now some of them do, but most of them don't. You know, you have to get an external monitor in most cases, you have to like de-squeeze it, and then when you get to post-production, you got to know how to set your aspect ratio and then figure out the math of how to de-squeeze properly for the aspect ratio that you're going for. And it's like, you're not just like shooting, uploading the files, putting them in your editing software, and you're good. So why would I do that? I do it because I enjoy it, and it feels like me, like what I like to do. It resonates with me. I like the way it looks. I like the workflow. I like manually focusing. Some people can't, they think it's stupid. Like, why would you do that if you could just like have autofocus? Well, I enjoy being a part of the process. I enjoy figuring out what part of the frame I want to focus on. And, you know, I look at the depth of field with more intention because of that. You know, like, I think autofocus can make you lazy. And I'm not saying it makes anybody lazy, but in my opinion, it could certainly make me lazy, where I just, if I know I'm always, if I set it to like human detection or phase detect, and I know I'm always going to be, you know, in focus, and if the camera is like a Sony or the newest Panasonic cameras where they have incredible autofocus, that I could see how that would make me be less meticulous about my depth of field, about my composition, about the way I want the frame to look, because I just know that it's going to capture me, and the rest of it is just going to be what it's going to be. Then I just choose an aperture, and then it's just more of a general kind of look of, you know, I'm blurring out the background, but I know I'm always going to be in focus whether I'm this close or 30 feet back. And then that's going to change the way the aperture moves too. And then, you know, autofocus, you know, like the aperture is not going to just like smoothly move like it would with manual focus. But I think the technology is catching up with that as well. So it's just not my thing. You know what I mean? So I enjoy working with anamorphic. I enjoy working with vintage lenses. And I think that's what you have to get to. That's why I think it's really important to get equipment that you can afford at the beginning, but get a good variety of stuff, or get a good zoom lens. Like I started on a Sony a6400, right? APS-C camera. The lens that I loved the most on that camera was the 18-105. That's a wide range, and also because I could zoom in on that camera, it was really an 18-150-ish, 154 or something, I don't know. I can't do the math in my head right now. But I could do, you know, it had clear image zoom, I think it's called, in that camera. I can't say APS-C mode because it was already an APS-C camera. But the point is that I had a wide focal range, you know, from 18, which was really 27, on a Sony on that Sony APS-C camera, the a6400. So I went from 27 to 150-ish. So I really learned, you know, what focal lengths resonated with me, what I shot with most of the time, and whether or not I would be changing focal lengths all the time, you know? I mean, I shot a film on my phone, so I already knew that I could shoot a whole feature film over 2 hours long with just one focal length, and it wouldn't bother me. Sometimes when we learn more, it's kind of a hassle, because then we have more options that can kind of paralyze you, and then you start like overthinking, like what focal length is best for this shot, when in fact it doesn't really matter all that much, you know? I mean, it's like, are you a mad scientist or are you a storyteller? Or are you both, you know? And if you're both, it's even worse, because then you're going to be like spending so much more time. And, you know, and again, you know what? If that's what you're into, if that's what you enjoy, if that's what you like, then that's cool. If you want to spend all that time to get your story exactly the way you want it to look, if you think that that's going to make your storytelling better, then that's what you should do. But, you know, you got to find like the happy medium, like what works for you. So I'm sitting here with this, you know, Sirui anamorphic lens at 24. Now 24 is really wide, so this way I'm able to capture the entire bridge. If I had my 75 or even my 35, it would have been much more difficult, because about 50 feet from here is the main road. So I wouldn't be able to move the camera far back enough to capture this shot that I'm capturing with this 24, because 24 is much wider. But right now I'm shooting at f8, and now the light's going up and down. I'll try to fix it in post. But right now I'm shooting at f8, which means pretty much everything is going to be in focus. But the interesting part of this test, which I'm going to do right now, is what if I set this to f2.8, like as fast as this lens goes, am I going to blur out the background at all? Because it's a wide lens. I'm about, I'd say 7 or 8 feet from the camera. Let's see what happens. And I'll have to adjust the aperture as well. So I'm going from f8 to f2.8, where you see it's like mad bright now. And so now I have to bring down the aperture to make it look right. So let me do that while I annoy you for a second. And that looks pretty good. It's all right. I can adjust it in post if I want to. And so maybe that's a little dark. I'm just eyeballing it right now. I could use my waveforms, but I'm still in focus because the focus point doesn't change. But how does this look? Is it a little dark? Maybe it is a little dark. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway, now you see I'm at f2.8. And does the frame dramatically change? Like I'm testing this lens to see how the depth of field works on a wide angle lens. Because I'm thinking that if I like the way this lens looks through all the different apertures, I could use this lens for like 75% of my film. But if I don't like it as much as the 35, which is a lens that I love, I'll probably make adjustments and use the 35 more. Even though the 24 allows me to get a much wider perspective and it's much less limiting. In other words, you know, if I want to get, it also has a closer focusing distance than the 35 or the 75. So I can actually get closer to this lens than I can with the other two. And so I have more flexibility with my shots. I can shoot in a close, like in an elevator or in a car with this lens. I can't do that with the other two because they're too long, too close, too tight. So I guess what I'm showing you here is that it's a good idea to do these kind of tests, do this kind of pre-production, do this kind of run through before you start just randomly shooting stuff. Learn what you like, learn what resonates with you. By the time I finish doing all this testing, like I just got this lens pretty recently. You know, I would say within the next few months when I do a lot of shooting, and by the way, I'm doing all this testing while I'm writing my script. So I'm just making the best use of my time. Like I'm not done with the script yet, so I couldn't start shooting anyway. So while I'm writing my script, and then when I finish the script, I'll start making my shot list, and I'll make a storyboard, and I'll do all that. I'm going to continue to test this stuff so that by the time I get to shooting, I know exactly what I have and what I need to use to get exactly what I want. That's really important, and that's really cool. So, you know, in the meantime, I don't know if I mentioned, this is totally kind of off the subject, but I have other actors in this film. Like I've been the only actor in my first 2 films, but now I'm engaging other people with me. So that's a whole different thing too, because, you know, I have to test what it looks like with multiple actors in the scene, in the composition. And so you see what I'm saying, right? And I guess my point for today's video is that there's no right way, there's no wrong way. You don't have to do it my way. I'm not going to do it your way or anybody else's way. I'm always going to do what resonates with me. What I do get from YouTube is I enjoy watching other people's videos about what they like to use. And you know, I try to narrow my watching down to the people who are actually making films. You know, like somebody who's just testing lenses all the time, it's not really teaching me anything. Like I could care less about any of that. But the people who are actually making films, then I get something from that. And you know, if something resonates with me, I'll be like, yo, I should try that. That might work for me. And then if I try it and it doesn't work for me, I learned something. And if it does work for me, I got some value from that video, which is pretty cool. So anyway, I hope that helps. I guess what I'm saying is nothing matters except what matters to you, the creator of the work, the artist. You know, I always say, do not create work thinking about what you think the audience wants, because you have no idea what the audience wants. You know, like you can't please everybody. You're never going to be able to do that. You have to put information out there, put art out there, put content out there that resonates with you deeply. Like Like I promised myself a long time ago that I would never step on a stage unless I felt like I would practically die without sharing that story. Like I am not going to get on a stage where people paid money to come to a theater to watch me, like one guy on stage doing a solo play. I'm not going to do that unless I feel like, yo, thank God you showed up because I got a problem. We got to solve it together. I need to share this story with you because I felt like I was going to die if I didn't do it. And then I'm bringing everything that I am and everything that I have to the equation. You know what I mean? And that's the only way that's respectful. And I feel the same way about YouTube. I feel the same way about filmmaking, writing in general, anything. Like I think you should only write what you know and only create what means something to you, because that's the only way you're going to really serve it with integrity. It's the only way. You know, unless you're like a journalist or a newscaster and somebody's handing you stories that you might not give a shit about, but you want to serve the story because that's your job. But if you're an artist creating stuff from scratch, or even if you're working on a documentary that you didn't create, but the reason hopefully you chose that documentary is because you felt like, oh my God, everybody needs to hear this story. Like this is so necessary, like this is so contributing to humanity. I have to tell this story. You know, you have to do what comes from you first, and then that's your offering to the world. And not everybody's gonna receive it. Not everybody's gonna want to receive it. Not everybody's gonna care, but those who do, those are your people. And they're gonna be so grateful for that. And then it's like a beautiful exchange, this beautiful shared experience, which is what art should be. And so, yeah, all of that, you know. So thank you guys so much for watching. This was kind of like a part 2 to yesterday's video. But it wasn't intended to be that way, but it wound up that way. So I guess it was kind of still on my mind. And when I saw that video by that guy Ben, and yesterday Matty Hapoya, it's a perfect example of me being inspired by other artists, you know. Like somebody says something, I'm like, whoa, that reminds me of something that I do, that just helped me so much. Like now I'm sitting here just kind of working this out because of those videos that I saw. So yeah, you know, do you, because everyone else is taken. That was one of the titles of my videos recently, and that's kind of how I live, you know, like, you know, let everybody else be who they are, be who you are, because you can't be anybody else as well as you can be you. And I'm going to end the video with that. So please subscribe, hit the like button if you like it, consider joining my Patreon, go to my website and get to know who I am and the other work that I do outside of here, which is my main work. And I appreciate so much that you come to this channel. I'm building here, and I'm trying to create something here that's really meaningful and sustainable, and I love it. I enjoy being here. It's not hard for me at all. As a matter of fact, I could record 10 videos a day. I got so much running through my head all the time, so I'm literally stopping myself sometimes from making videos. So I'll be here pretty much every day. I'm committed to it. It's not hard for me, and as a matter of fact, it's my honor. And so, yeah, I'm going to end the video with that. All right, see you in a minute.